It is March 18th, 2020, and the great crisis hits home. Hi, I'm John McNeil, and this is the Invest Strong Network. Welcome. Well, as of a couple of days ago, this crisis, both financial and health, caused by the COVID-19 coronavirus thing, really hit close to home for myself personally, right? I work at a hotel restaurant here in Houston, and the restaurant called me. Manager says, "Hey, we're closed for the next couple of weeks, at least," right? And this thing could go on for months, right? So, what's a person to do? Well, actually, I'm blessed because, as any viewer of the Invest Strong Network knows, I've made it a point to save, to invest, and to have a cushion to fall back on. Also, I own and operate a bed and breakfast. So far, the bed and breakfast business has been holding up pretty good, although I've had a couple cancellations, but overall it's been holding up fairly well. So actually, I'm okay. My concern is for my friends and colleagues, right? Many of them live paycheck to paycheck. Many of them have two jobs, but both of the jobs they have are in the hospitality industry, right? Which means that they get wiped out on both ends, all right? Also, there is this. For persons who have saved and they have money in a savings account, interest bearing, and they were hoping to, skim the interest off of that to help pay the bills. That is getting walloped as the Federal Reserve has slashed interest rates down to zero, and the banks are going to follow along in pretty short order, right? So what I wanted to do with this vid is just kind of make my viewing audience aware of what it's going to take to survive this crisis. All right. Now, this thing is like none other I've seen, right? The way I look at it, it's a combination of the September 11th attacks as it relates to the impact on hospitality and the airlines, to the financial crisis, which relates to its impact on the financial markets and things of that nature, and Hurricane Ike, which swept over Houston in September of 2008 and basically rendered everyone out of work for a couple of weeks anyway, right? So this thing is like a combination of all of those three things put together, except now we're going to make it on a national scale. No, correction, on a global scale, right? It is going to take a long time to recover from this. And I know people, those in the Trump administration, the president himself, they're saying, oh, there's going to be a sharp snapback once the virus has been reduced or defeated. The economy is going to get right back to humming the way it was before. No, sir. That's not the way it works, right? Many of the changes that are being made now are going to have a kind of permanent imprint on the psyche of investors and of consumers. And many of the companies that were dominant and profitable before this thing will either be completely different or they will go bye-bye. That is a fact, right? And this retrenchment of the economy is going to have far-reaching impacts, something that really no one can really size up at this moment. Certainly I can't, right? All of the hospitality industry people that are put out of work, once these businesses, they realize that they can operate to some degree without all of the employees that they had before. I wonder how many of these people that are being put out of work now will ever go back, right? So we may be looking at an elevated unemployment rate in the United States of America for a really, really long time, right? That's the reality of what we live in today, right? Okay, first and foremost, the government has to get this COVID-19 coronavirus situation under control. Now, obviously, they're working on it on all levels of government, local, state, and federal now, finally, right? But pandemics, they don't just come and go. It takes a really long time to get a grip on these things. These bugs travel through society much faster than anyone can imagine, and their reach is always far greater than the estimates make up for, because really we just don't know who's in contact with whom, and who has it, who doesn't, and all of that, right? So this thing could last a really, really long time. And I was thinking the other day, watching lots of the business news, what's going to happen to the financial markets now that the economy is basically going through a massive retrenchment, right? Well, I have come to the conclusion, on a personal level, I've come to the conclusion that all of the gains, all of them, since the Great Recession / economic crisis of 2008, 2009, all of those will be wiped out by the end of this thing, right? So the stock market, when we'll use the Dow Jones Industrial Average as a benchmark for that, which at one time was at 29,500, right? To wipe out all of the gains made since the bottom of the financial crisis in early 2009, I'm going to say the Dow will have to retreat to around 6,500, something like that, right? Basically, the entire economy since the economic crises will be laid asunder. That's where we're at. Now, that's particularly painful because the bottom of that crisis basically reverted the economy, or reverted the markets anyway, back to the levels of the late 1990s. So really, when we get back to the levels of the depths of the financial crisis in early 2009, it's really more like where we were back in the late 1990s, right? So almost 30 years or so of financial gains will be wiped out by this. And that's just the reality, right? Now, what do we do going forward? Well, in previous vids, I've mentioned that one can dabble in new purchases. Dabble. There are still very good companies out there, very good stocks out there that will survive this and thrive. But man, oh man, you have to be careful, right? Very, very careful. And at this point, the wisest thing to do, if you still have income, any kind of income, the wisest thing you can do is to accumulate cash and dabble in some high quality asset shares. Those are the only two things really anyone should do, right? I would not buy bonds at this point. There's been a bond rally that has run yields down too low. So really owning bonds besides U.S. Treasuries really isn't worth it, right? I would not be going out there buying real estate either, right? I mean, real estate, either REIT shares, or if you want to to do crowdfunding, as you know, did a previous vid on that, or purchase shares or purchase properties directly yourself, don't do it, right? Unless you plan on living in it, right? Do not do it for investment purposes, right? Accumulate your cash, build your powder if you still have income, and just dabble in high quality assets. That would be my advice. I have to hunker down and ride out the storm. I think I'll be okay, right? If this thing drags on beyond 2 months or 3 months and I'm out of work and and other places where I could work at, because I thought about, well, I could go and put in apps other places, but see, all the other places are also closed down, so there's basically nowhere to go. We're trapped. Right now, for me, I have a little bit of an outlet since I have my bed and breakfast, as I previously mentioned. But now some of my bed and breakfast clients are saying that their employers are telling them that they can work from home, telework or whatever. And now that's beginning to affect, right? But we'll see. Well, I'll keep you up to date, right? So let's hang in there. This is a great time to give to prayer. I'm kind of a spiritual guy, right? This is a great time to turn over to prayer, right? And be wise, cut back on expenses. Obviously, I don't have to tell anyone that. That's number one. And try to save as much as you can of any income that you still have left over. And if you do have lots of cash, you can dabble in high quality assets only. All right. Thank you much. And I'll keep you up to date on what's going on here in Houston and on a personal level. All right. Thank you.